You know why Brett Favre did that? Because he's so old, he outlived 6 proctologists. So he was just panicking. He was like, somebody's got to check out my dick. So he just started sending it to random friends.
So true.
Could he sue me if he saw this? I don't give a fuck.
Nice.
I'm here today to talk to you about the Siege of Paris by the Vikings. It happened from 885 to 886 AD. The king of France at the time was a man named Charles the Fat. As you may have guessed from his name, he was not known for his military prowess. He was described as very lazy and very sickly. Many believed he actually faked being sick a lot of the time to get out of the duties of court. He also suffered from epilepsy. His actions in the Siege of Paris would actually end the Carolingian dynasty. I feel like when I do this, I'm smarter. A year after he was coronated as king, the Vikings decided, hey, let's take his shit. They loaded up boats, and to Paris they took 30,000 men. To put that in perspective, an army of 3,000 men was considered exceptionally large at the time. They were 10 times that. They sailed to Paris. At the time, Paris was located on an island. It had 2 bridges, one made of stone, one made of wood. The wooden bridge is the bridge the Vikings targeted. These bridges were low enough that they blocked all ship traffic, which was another defensive mechanism that they had planned when they built the city. Attacking the wooden bridge, the Vikings felt they could, get a pretty strong foothold, maybe take the whole city. Paris at the time had only 200 soldiers, man-at-arms, not even knights or anything, just basic soldiers. Most of them were probably peasants who had been conscripted into military service. The Vikings showed up and gave them a very simple chance, a very simple offer. Give us all your valuables, and maybe you won't get raped. It's the same principle used by Rick at the pawn shop on Pawn Stars. The French denied. The first attack attempt by the Vikings was repelled with hot oil, hot wax, crossbows, bows and arrows. All the siege heavy hitters came into play. The Vikings gave up their attack for the day. Through the night, the French actually built another story onto the tower that was used to defend the bridge. Let me take a second to explain how sieges work. In a siege, you really have 2 options. One, knock down the wall, take the city. The Vikings didn't have really any siege equipment that could knock down the French walls, so they fell to the second option of just waiting inside for everyone to starve to death. However, since the French had tower building equipment, tower building materials, and food, the French realized they were in for the long haul. The French realized they were going to have to take this city by force. They tried many times to just rush the walls. None of them worked. The heavy oil just repelled them at every chance. Finally, they had a very Viking idea. We've got all these ships. Why not set some of them on fire? Use it to burn down this bridge. They did so. Set 3 ships on fire, sent it towards the bridge. The ships crashed into the bridge. The Paris defenders looked in horror as absolutely nothing happened. The ships sank before they could destroy the bridge. The Vikings kind of looked around at each other. What the fuck? This shit sucks. We need plan B. Plan B was to use the dead bodies of prisoners, dead animals, and any sort of debris they found in the forest, such as fallen trees, dirt, rocks, to build their own bridge across the river. As they were building this bridge, they were constantly attacked by the few French defenders. It never worked. They just couldn't find a foothold to get into the city. The siege lasted for about a year. At one point during that year, towards the end of the siege, a storm came. It washed all the debris, all the dead bodies, all the dead prisoners into the wooden bridge. The wooden bridge, already weakened by the burning ships, collapsed, isolating the northeast tower of Paris. The Vikings took it easily. There were only 12 defenders inside. They were given the option of surrender, which they refused, and they were killed to a man. The Vikings held the tower for a few days. Finally, Charles, who you may remember was very fat, decided, fuck all this noise. Time to take some action. Charles the Fat mobilized an entire army. He marched to the Vikings as they were pillaging and looting villages nearby. He surrounded the Vikings, and he gave them a very, very serious offer. Please take this 700 pounds of silver and leave my city. The Vikings accepted. It is known by most historians as the biggest pussy move in the history of warfare. When faced with a city that had been taken from him, from his empire, from his dynasty, he just begged the enemy to leave. Paid them to leave. It is a move that was such a bitch move that fat people were forever cursed to never see their own dicks again. Charles the Fat's actions in this siege really destroyed the Carolingian dynasty. After his death, a man from another family was promoted to king. A civil war enveloped France. to decide who would rule the French people, and the Carolingians were kicked out on their ass. All because of one man's brave defiance of being a man and calling in the biggest pussy move in the history of warfare. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Viking siege of Paris of 885 to 886.